highly sensitive people. This is such an important topic to me, and I didn't even realize it was. So, last night, early this morning, I woke up at about 12 o'clock. It had to have been like 12:20 or 12:30. For some reason, when I woke up at that time period, I usually like to watch a little bit of YouTube and relax because I don't have to worry about my daughter telling me to turn to like her favorite show or anything like that. She usually likes to dominate the TV. You know how toddlers are. But I started watching some things that I like to watch on YouTube early in the morning, like 12 a.m. And all of a sudden, I just started thinking about sensitivity, the idea of being sensitive. For some reason, it was just on my mind because I have always been a sensitive person, and it just fascinates me, the idea of just being sensitive. And all of a sudden, I really can't make things like this up. It's just, I don't know if it was like divine confirmation or what, but you know how you're watching a video on YouTube on the TV and you scroll down while the video is on and there's other videos? Well, I did that, and when I strolled down, there was a documentary on sensitivity. I just could not believe that. But anyway, the documentary was done by this world-renowned psychologist, and I think her name is Elaine. I will put the name of the documentary on the screen for you to see and for you to go watch later if you want to. But this documentary is fascinating, and it's for free on YouTube. You just have to worry about the ads, but it's free. Boy, it was fascinating. I learned a lot about my own sensitivity, and I realized why I act the way I act and think the way I think. Because when I was younger, I was very sensitive. I think more sensitive than I am now. Because I would just cry at the smallest thing. Like somebody could be talking to me, and if I felt like it hurt my feelings, it could have just been like small criticism, like constructive criticism. Things like that would make me cry. It got to the point where my grandma used to actually say that I was going to be an actress because I could cry on cue so fast. But I don't understand. I don't know if they knew anything about temperament, because that's really what it is. And I believe they didn't know about any of those things. You know, coming from an African American home, mental health is not really focused on, and things like temperament is not focused on either. So I don't think they knew that my temperament was sensitivity. So I just grew up crying a whole lot to things that normally a normal like person, well, I ain't gonna say a normal person because I feel like there's nothing wrong with having a sensitivity temperament. It's just that that's your type of temperament. Other people have different temperaments. And I've studied about temperament before and didn't realize I had that type of temperament. I'll go into that later. But the thing is, I had it. I had that temperament growing up, and then I still have it because I have like a nervous type of temperament whenever I drive. Like, I'm fine with driving like in the area that I'm driving now. Like, the area where I live, but when it's time to drive for longer periods of time, I usually have to be in the car by myself or with my daughter because she doesn't say much while I'm driving. And that makes me feel more relaxed and I can finish the driving and get to my destination. But when people like my grandmother or other relatives are in my car who like to do what is called backseat driver, oh my goodness, it's just a very nerve wracking. And it was nerve wracking this time whenever I went to my work conference. I recently had a work conference where I had to be at the destination for about 3 days. And it took me 3.5 hours to get to the destination. And it was somewhat nerve wracking. But I calmed down and just got into my own little space. But on the way back, it was much nerve wracking. So, but I'm glad that I took a route that did not have much traffic on the way back because of my sensitivity. Basically, the documentary explained all of this. The documentary talked about how people who are sensitive cry a whole lot. People who are sensitive, they may get super nervous while driving. They may be even sensitive to people jingling keys in front of their face. That's how sensitive they can get, which is very fascinating to me. And the thing is, I've studied this type of temperament in children before because I am a breastfeeding peer counselor for the state of Louisiana, here where I live, but I'm also a womb coach and a certified doula. So I've studied this several times in children. And now I'm also going to get my CLSP, which was a Certified Lactation Support Provider certification. So I've been studying this a whole lot. This not just the sensitive temperament, but all the temperaments. And I've actually taken a Hug Your Baby course where it went into full detail about the different temperaments. In fact, I had a WIC client who actually had a baby with this type of temperament. So she would breastfeed her baby and she would notice that the baby would not make eye contact with her as they were feeding. And not only did the baby do that, the baby did not like to be in areas that were lit up, if I may say it like that, like where there were lights or too much light. And I told her, I said, I think your baby has a temperament that is sensitive. Babies who are sensitive, they don't really like a lot of stimulation. And I said, that's what you're doing whenever you're bringing the baby in a room that's very lit up with light. And also, the baby is not trying to not look at you while you're feeding. It's just the baby is rather shy. The baby doesn't like to make eye contact with you as their mother because they don't like that stimulation of eye contact. That's how sensitive babies are when they're in that temperament. Now, if you are a lactation consultant or somebody who is in the lactation field like I am, you will know that temperament is rather important when it comes to feeding a baby, because if you are breastfeeding, depending on what type of temperament your child has, if you don't know about the temperament, you could think, oh my goodness, isn't the baby supposed to look at you while you're feeding? Which is what we usually tell moms. It's so wonderful to have that bonding experience when you practice skin to skin contact and the child looks up at you. So a mother might expect the child to look up at her while she's feeding the baby and have that connection. But if the baby does not, they might think something is going on. And possibly they might stop breastfeeding because they don't think they're having that connection. That's why temperament is so important. But if this mother knows that the baby has a sensitive temperament, then she'll be like, okay, I understand why the baby isn't connecting with me or not making eye contact. And then some children have what they call difficult or active, which is what I like to say. I like to say active temperament. And basically what active temperament is basically when the child is unpredictable in their behavior. So the baby could cry at any periods of time. It doesn't matter if they're hungry or not. And that could really frustrate a parent that's breastfeeding. They could think, oh, my baby does not want me. When really in actuality, it's the baby's temperament. It's not anything that the parent is doing. And in most cases, sometimes the mom will stop breastfeeding because she thinks the baby doesn't want her, not realizing the baby has an active or difficult temperament. So temperament is very important. It really is. With the client that had that sensitive temperament, well, her baby had that type of temperament, I asked her to take her child in a non-stimulating room. Make sure the blinds were somewhat closed or all the way closed, or the curtains are very closed. The light is dimmed or turned off. Not as much noise. If any, maybe white noise a little bit, but not much. And just feed in that room and see how the baby reacts. The baby did really well in a room like that, a non-stimulated room, because they are so sensitive. And it's just so fascinating to me. I never knew that I had that temperament. And I really do. There's so many things that really upset me at times where I just don't have any explanation on why I'm crying. And I'm not saying that I don't have like my doubts with like, or what I'm not saying I don't have like, because I've had like depression, before. And I've had to take medication for my depression. I've talked about that on this channel. If you can, and if you're interested, you can check out my postpartum ASMR content where I did basically like my experience with taking medication for depression and everything, and having postpartum depression and all of that. I talk about all of that in that series. And then it's kind of like a short film, informational type of work playlist. So I would really like for you to check it out. I'll leave it up here at the top of the screen for you. But yes, I feel like that can make you, mental health issues can result into anxiety and depression. I'm not saying that, but temperament has a lot to do with it. You know what I mean? So focus on your temperament as well. Try to figure out what type of temperament you have, because now everything that I do makes sense. I understand why I feel the way I feel now that I've watched that documentary. And I would really, really like to watch Dr. Elaine's, read her Highly Sensitive People book. I feel like if I read that book, it's going to make a lot of sense. And I think I do have it, on Audible, if I'm not mistaken. That's the crazy thing about it. I just have never read it, but I am going to read it because I do believe that another um, YouTube YouTuber, her name is I think her name is Ayanda Stood. She's really good. She has an awesome podcast here on YouTube, and I think it's called like the Soul Salon. Really good content. But anyway, the book is supposed to be amazing because she did recommend that book. It was on sensitivity. And I think that's the same book that Elaine wrote. I'm not for sure, but I will check. Like I said, if I leave anything out, I'll have it on the screen for you all. But I'm definitely going to read that book to find out more about my temperament because that's the temperament that I am. Like everything that they were talking about is very similar to me. And then if you look at it, a lot of creative folks, as I like to say, a lot of creative folks, a lot of folks that are very creative and very artistic are sensitive. They have that sensitivity about them, according to that documentary, and I really do believe them. And I'm very creative. I'm a very artsy person. I've always liked to draw. I've always loved to write, draw, paint, dance, sing. And I've always been talented in those areas. And I've always wondered why. And I'm not saying I'm talented or great in those areas because I'm sensitive, but there's something to that. There really is something to that. It's definitely a sign of sensitivity, you know? And I've always been very empathetic towards people. Like the smallest things make me cry. Like I remember my brother was looking at me so crazy, and he was even judging me because there was this episode of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air with Will Smith, and Will Smith had a very difficult relationship with his father on that show because his father was rather absent. And I think on the episode, he was trying to connect with his father, trying to get to know him, and his father just was not having it. His father just was very absent and didn't really care to understand Will, if that makes sense. Or he didn't care to have a relationship with Will. I'm going to say it like that. And it just really upset me. It was something that really got on my nerves. And I think I ended up crying on that episode because it was so hurtful for me. I could not believe or understand why a person wouldn't want a relationship with their child. It just really upset me. And this is before I became a parent myself. So it was almost as though I could feel his pain, even though I knew Will was acting. And then another thing about Will Smith is Will Smith actually has a great, his father was really good to him. So I don't think Will could really connect, but he's such a great actor that he really got into that role where he could kind of connect or relate to the person, relate to his character's pain from not having a father growing up. So, because, Will's father in real life was a good man. But anyway, I just want to say I really could relate, and my father really wasn't there when I was growing up. And so it really kind of just hurt to see Will crying. And Will was like, he did really good on this episode because he was really crying because he was so upset about the relationship that him and his father just didn't have. So that really upset me. And I started crying. My brother was judging me. He was like, what is wrong with you? Why are you crying over that? But I have to have some level of grace to my relatives because they don't understand temperament. They don't know anything about it. Like I said, they don't know about anything like that. And I can't blame them because When you don't know, you are ignorant. You are very ignorant when you don't know. And that's all ignorance means. Ignorance doesn't mean dumb. Ignorance means you don't know. And you can't blame a person for something they don't know. So now I have a level of grace for them, you know, for making fun of me or not understanding why I was as sensitive as I was. But things like that will make me cry. I have a great amount of empathy for people at times. And certain things just really bother me or get on my nerves. Yeah, that's why I really can't watch a lot of news shows. And sometimes I really like to watch true crime videos on YouTube, but sometimes I have to take a break from those things because they really get to me. And I realize I'm sensitive, but I feel like being sensitive is a good thing. Now that I understand it, I feel like it's a really good thing. I don't think it's something that I need to hold off on because that's what I've been doing. I've been kind of suppressing my sensitivity, if that makes sense. I don't even know if that's a thing, but I've been suppressing my sensitivity. If I have the urge to cry, I try not to cry. And I don't think that's right. I think if I am in pain or if I feel somebody else's pain, I need to cry because that makes me human. That makes me sensitive, and that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. It just means that I'm a caring person, a very empathetic person, and that is the way to be. There's nothing wrong with it. And so crying is a good thing. You know, even with driving, I think it's a good thing because if you're highly sensitive, you're highly aware, you can understand what's going on in the road. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I think I need to embrace it, you know what I mean? But yeah, y'all tell me what y'all think about sensitivity. Are you a sensitive person? Do sensitive things happen to you? I don't know. Y'all tell me about y'all experience with sensitivity. Again, I am a womb coach. I am a breastfeeding peer counselor for the state. And I am also an author, by the way. I forgot to mention that. I am an author. I have my own poetry book that you can purchase in the link below in my description. And I'm also a certified doula. So if you have anything that you might be, like if you're a woman or you're a birthing person and you have a womb and maybe you're going through some trauma or you are sensitive, reach out to me. Let's connect. I would love to set up a session with you, see what we can do. Like I said, go to my link down below. You can visit my website or you can just email me. Preferably just email me down below if you want to work with me. Yep. Thank you so much for attending this session, this video. I love how you all watch my videos. Even though it's not that many of you right now, I know that the ones that are here are genuine fans, and I just love it. Thank you.